You can tell when a narcissist has realized they've lost control over you. It's not subtle. It doesn't happen quietly. It doesn't show up as a simple argument, a cold shoulder, or a few toxic words. No, when a narcissist sees that you have grown stronger than their manipulation, when they recognize that the old tactics no longer work, that is the moment they reach for their darkest, most desperate trick. And it's always the same one. Carl Jung understood this deeply when he said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." Jung wasn't talking about narcissists specifically, but if there is any group of people on Earth who will twist reality, destroy relationships, rewrite history, and sacrifice their own integrity just to avoid facing their true self, it's them. And when they see that you're becoming too strong, too aware, too emotionally independent for their usual games, they will unleash their final, dirtiest maneuver, the one designed to break even the strongest mind. But before we talk about that final trick, let's start with the moment the narcissist realizes you are no longer under their spell. It begins with small cues, little shifts in your energy. Maybe you don't respond to their messages instantly. Maybe you don't get flustered when they give you the silent treatment. Maybe the guilt trips don't hit you like they used to. They sense almost instinctively that something has changed. Narcissists are emotional predators, and predators feel when their prey is no longer afraid. They feel when you start developing self-respect. They feel when you stop seeking their approval, and they hate it. Because your strength is the one thing that exposes the truth they've been running from their entire life. They're not in control of themselves, and so they try to control you. But when that control slips, panic begins. Quiet, subtle panic, hidden behind a fake smile, a sarcastic remark, or sudden kindness. They can't show fear, so they mask it with charm. They can't show insecurity, so they mask it with arrogance. They can't show weakness, so they mask it with manipulation. But inside, they're scrambling, because they know what comes next. And so do you. The moment the narcissist realizes you're too strong is the moment they start running through their entire catalog of manipulation tactics, like a panicked magician whose tricks no longer impress the crowd. First, they try love bombing. This is their oldest trick, their comfort zone. You'll see sudden sweetness, unexpected compliments, strange bursts of nostalgia, and fake vulnerability. They might say they miss you. They might talk about what you two used to have. They might apologize, not sincerely, but strategically. But you don't fall for it this time. You've seen too much. You've learned too much. You've been hurt enough times to know that their change lasts only as long as their fear of losing you. And the narcissist sees it. They feel your indifference like a punch to the chest. So they shift. Next comes guilt. They remind you of everything they've done for you, everything they sacrificed, every moment where they supported you, even if you were the one who carried the entire relationship on your back. But guilt isn't working either. Maybe the old version of you would have apologized, tried harder, fixed things, but not anymore. You've grown. You've stepped into a level of self-awareness they never expected, and that threatens them deeply. Then comes the anger, sudden, explosive, irrational anger. They accuse you of changing, of being selfish, of being ungrateful. They lash out, not because you wronged them, but because you stopped allowing them to wrong you. And that is when their panic evolves into desperation. It's at this moment, the moment they realize love bombing doesn't work, guilt doesn't work, anger doesn't work, that they reach for their last dirty trick. Carl Jung would call it the projection of the shadow. Narcissists don't just deny their darkness, they throw it at you. They take the worst parts of themselves, the insecurities, the fears, the lies, the selfish desires, the hidden guilt, and they project all of it onto you. This final trick is simple but devastating. They try to convince you that you are the narcissist. Yes, this is the trick. The moment they see you as too strong, too self-aware, too healed to be manipulated, their last hope is to attack your identity, your sanity, your reality. If they can't control you through love, guilt, or fear, they will attempt to control you through confusion. They want you to doubt yourself. They want you to question your motives. They want you to wonder, am I actually the problem? Because if they can make you unsure of yourself, then they regain power. That is their final play. But let's go deeper into this, much deeper. Because this trick isn't just about calling you a narcissist. It's about weaponizing psychology against you. Narcissists study you. They observe how you respond to criticism, what makes you anxious, what triggers your self-doubt. They know if you're the type of person who takes responsibility easily, who worries about hurting others, who hates conflict. So they exploit your strengths. If you're empathetic, they call you manipulative. If you set boundaries, they call you abusive. If you express your needs, they say you're selfish. If you walk away, they accuse you of running from problems. If you finally stand up for yourself, they say you're just like them. This is psychological warfare. This is identity attack. This is the darkest manipulation technique they have. And here's the twisted part. It often works because good people question themselves. Healthy people reflect. Empaths look inward first. But narcissists never question themselves. Jung wrote extensively about the human shadow, the dark side of our personality that we must confront if we want to grow. But narcissists refuse to confront theirs. Instead, they project it onto whoever is closest to them, whoever cared enough to stay long enough to see it. But once you stop absorbing their darkness, once you stop letting them dump their shadow onto you, they no longer know who they are, and that's what terrifies them. This final trick is not just a tactic, it is an identity crisis for the narcissist. You becoming strong forces them to confront their weakness. You becoming self-aware forces them to confront their delusion. You becoming independent forces them to face their emptiness. And so, rather than look inward, they turn their attention outward at you. Because convincing you that you are the toxic one allows them to remain the hero of their own story. Let's walk through how this final trick actually plays out. Imagine you finally set a boundary for the first time in months or years. Maybe you say you don't want to argue anymore. Maybe you say you need space. Maybe you simply stop accepting their mistreatment. The narcissist's response is immediate. Wow, you're so selfish. You only think about yourself. You're impossible to talk to. You gaslight me constantly. You twist everything I say. You're the narcissist here. The irony is staggering. The narcissist is describing themselves, but they don't know it. Or they do know it, and simply don't care, because the goal is not honesty. It's control. Control through confusion. Control through self-doubt. Control through identity destabilization. But here's the turning point. There comes a moment, perhaps the quietest moment in the entire cycle, where you hear their accusations and something inside you goes still. You don't get defensive. You don't argue. You don't explain yourself. You simply recognize the truth. They aren't describing you at all. They are describing their own shadow. Jung said that the first step toward psychological maturity is to acknowledge the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. But narcissists refuse to take that step. They avoid it with everything they have. They hide from their shadow like it's death itself. They see any confrontation with their real self as annihilation. So instead of facing the mirror, they turn you into the mirror. You become the container for their flaws, their fears, their weaknesses. And when you stop playing that role, when you refuse to hold their shadow anymore, they panic. This is where the smear campaign begins. The narcissist cannot tolerate losing control privately, so they try to regain it publicly. They tell others, "You're the abuser." They twist stories. They misinterpret events. They create narratives where they are the victim and you are the villain. Because if they can't control how you see yourself, they will try to control how others see you. But Jung would say, this is simply the unconscious mind trying desperately to avoid self-awareness. Because if the narcissist admitted the truth even for a moment, they would have to confront the terrifying emptiness inside them. And that emptiness is something they've spent their entire life running from. But here's where your strength becomes untouchable. Once you see this final trick for what it truly is, not an attack on you, but a confession of them, you become immune. The confusion dissolves. The words lose their sting. You no longer personalize the things they project. You no longer absorb blame that isn't yours. You recognize that their accusations are not reflections of your character, but echoes of their pain. And here is the part they will never understand. Your strength doesn't come from overpowering them. It comes from understanding yourself, from seeing your own shadow, from doing the inner work they refuse to do. Your strength is not a threat to healthy people. It's a threat only to those who depend on your weakness. Narcissists need you to doubt yourself, because a self-aware person cannot be controlled. They need you to question yourself, because a grounded person cannot be manipulated. They need you to feel guilty for having boundaries, because a protected person cannot be exploited. But when you become strong enough to hold your boundaries without guilt, when you become conscious enough to question their narrative instead of your identity, when you become aware enough to separate projection from truth, the game ends, their power collapses, their tricks fail, their influence disintegrates. And that brings us to the final, most liberating realization. When a narcissist tries their last dirty trick, accusing you of being the narcissist, twisting reality, attacking your character, it is actually evidence that they no longer have control over you. It is proof that you have outgrown their manipulation. It is confirmation that you have stepped into a level of strength they cannot access, cannot imitate, and cannot destroy. This is the moment where the cycle breaks, the moment where you step out of the psychological maze, the moment where their shadow returns to its rightful owner. When a narcissist sees you as too strong, they attack your identity. But when you know who you are, the attack is powerless. When you are grounded in your truth, their lies dissolve. When you recognize projection, their accusations become meaningless. When you understand your worth, their opinion loses all value. And when you stop carrying their shadow, they are forced to confront the darkness they've avoided their entire life. This is what strength looks like. Not force, not dominance, not anger. Awareness, self-knowledge, emotional intelligence, the very qualities Jung believed were essential for becoming a whole human being. Qualities narcissists lack, qualities they envy, qualities they fear. So when the narcissist uses this last trick, when they try to shatter your identity, when they try to rewrite reality, when they try to paint you as the villain, understand what is truly happening. They are not revealing something about you. They are revealing everything about themselves. The truth is simple. Strong people threaten weak illusions. Your strength exposes their lack of growth. Your self-awareness exposes their denial. Your boundaries expose their entitlement. And your healing exposes their wounds. Remember this. The final trick is not a sign of their power. It is a sign of their defeat. The narcissist's last desperate move is simply the shadow screaming because it has nowhere left to hide. And once you see that shadow clearly, once you detach from it completely, you become free. Free from manipulation, free from confusion, free from guilt that was never yours. Free from the identity they tried to give you, free to become who you truly are. And in that freedom lies your greatest strength, the ability to walk away with your dignity while they remain trapped in the self-created prison of their own shadow.